Welcome back to the Dumpster Fire Project, everybody. This is it. This is the last episode of 2020. Murray, we actually made it this far, and we're going out in style. We've got a guest on here tonight that I've been trying to get for a while. I'm really excited about, and Murray and I, we've talked about this for a while. So our guest tonight began bottling barbecue sauce and seasonings, and I guess you could call it repurposed Sailor Jerry bottles in his kitchen in Southeast New Mexico. And that kind of turned into his business today, TD's Brew and Barbecue. So we have with us TD from TD's Brew and Barbecue. Thanks for joining us, man.
Hey, how's it going, guys?
It's going pretty good after we get past the technical difficulties, but this is the Dumpster Fire Project.
Right. My fault. It's always my fault with the technical difficulties. Even on our show, it's always me. It's
nice.
Always me.
Yeah. So you guys do a podcast too, right?
Yeah. We have a podcast. We go live every Wednesday night. We talk barbecue. We talk controversial foods. We have guests on as well. Our guests we are actually booked every Wednesday until the end of May right now.
Nice.
Oh, nice.
So, and we're only on episode 7.
We're only on the 7th. It's fairly new, right? Yeah. Yeah. Good for you guys.
Yeah, Murray and I are booked through tonight. That's it.
Oh. So it's a good thing there was no scheduling conflict, right?
Exactly. Yeah, it'd just be us on here. So before we dive in, because we're definitely going to talk about some barbecue stuff tonight, and we really want to get into your story about how you built this thing. But before we do, tell everybody where they can find you at, where they can find you on social media, where they can buy the sauces and seasonings at.
So you can go to tdsbrewandbarbecue.com. Make sure you spell it out. That's tdsbrewandbbq.com. You can actually go there and you can find the link to each social media platform. So there's Instagram, it's tdsbrewbbq. It's TD's Brew BBQ. Facebook, it's TD's Brew and Barbecue. And then on YouTube, again, it's TD's Brew and Barbecue. That's where we go. We broadcast live on our podcast on Wednesday nights through, there's a bug in here. It's pretty cold to have a bug out here right now. But we go live on Wednesday nights, 9:00 New Mexico time. I'm the co-host of the Moose and TD's Brew and Barbecue show. And we get into some pretty cool shenanigans and stuff on there. But feel free to watch us. You can click the subscribe. You can get all the notifications and everything on there. You also can, on the YouTube channel, you also get all the cooking videos and stuff that we do.
Yeah, it's good stuff. So I brought in a bottle with me because I got about 6 of these in the pantry. This is the Atomic Pineapple.
Right.
And I love this stuff. Honestly, it's one of the best barbecue sauces I ever had. I told Murray, I was like, you got to try some of this stuff. It's top notch. So definitely check these guys out. I think they can find you locally here in New Mexico. You're at some of the grocery stores, but like we have a big following in the Midwest and Michigan. If someone wants to get your stuff, they can go on the website and get it.
Yeah, for right now. Yeah. In New Mexico, I have 60 stores carrying it right now here in New Mexico. A lot of them are here in Southeast, but we have Albuquerque, Taos, Santa Fe, all the way around Ruidoso. All the way around New Mexico. I have a lot in West. I have about 10 stores in West Texas right now. In January, we will. We have been approved to do 30 market streets in Texas. So market streets is kind of like your Whole Foods. Yeah. It's just not exactly the Whole Foods part of it. They're just a little higher end store. Right. Where, people are going to pay the extra buck.
Yes.
that kind of store. So we're in those, and then probably 30 Uniteds as well. So it'll be about another 60 stores come the end of January there. And then this is actually going to be distributed through the nation's largest grocery distributor in the United States. So got picked up for them. So man, that's just one thing. So if there is a store up in Michigan or something like that, that's really interested in carrying it, we can definitely get them in touch with our distribution company, and they could definitely get it done.
I did something similar, not nearly to your level. I was doing a lot of trips to Puerto Rico, so I saw down there they make their hot sauce in all the old empty bottles of rum. They just put the peppers in, some vinegar, and it's on like every table down there. So when I saw they use Sailor Jerry bottles. I was like, oh, I can relate. Like that's a good way to get started.
Yeah. I actually started saving the Sailor Jerry bottle. Yeah, to get back to there, man. Yeah, I used to drink a lot of rum, and Sailor Jerry is the best. I mean, it's like, as far as the taste and everything goes. Plus, I like what everything stands for with it. You know, the booze and the tattoos and just the lifestyle.
My audio. I can't hear anything.
So I just had these empty bottles laying around when I would make barbecue sauce and stuff, and I'd fill them up, and that's what I'd save them in. Like if you get fill it in the hot enough sauce, like because the sauce is actually should be boiling when you bottle it, or like at least 185 degrees. So if you fill it up and you leave like about a half inch at the top, you can actually take the lid and you can put it down pretty tight because it has a wax coating in there, and it will almost reseal again. So it's not the most sanitary way, but as you're doing a home thing by yourself, just giving it to your friends, that's kind of how it was. But yeah, man, I really started using the Sailor Jerry bottles when I started taking Tabasco peppers. You get like the little Tabasco peppers and you throw them in there, and then you fill it up with boiling apple cider vinegar, and you put the lid on it and you let it go for about 4 months. And what you do, then you basically have your own homemade Tabasco sauce pretty much, and you just squirt it on there. Awesome. So yeah, that's what I did. But yeah, that's where it came from. Just put all those, and I would save a lot, man. I would save a lot. I think there was probably a time I was probably drinking like a 1 bottle of Sailor a week.
Oh man. Was it it was all business purposes, I'm sure.
Yeah, I had to do it. Yeah, I had to do it just so that way I could make barbecue sauce. That's all it was.
Oh, that's awesome.
So I'm back in here.
Right.
So hopefully you guys can hear me.
Welcome to the party.
I know. I was talking, all of a sudden I heard these like clicking noises in the speakers, and then it just died.
And it wasn't just in your head for
no, for once. So now I can actually I can't hear in the headphones. I can't hear myself. It's weird, but I'll make it work because it's the dumpster fire project.
That's right.
So I left off, Murray, tell me what did I miss? Catch me up here.
We just stepped through the beginning and using the bottles to, get it out to friends. And from there, we were getting ready to figure out, how'd you ramp it up? When did you decide to kind of make that jump and turn it into something more than just, friends hanging out and, great Christmas presents?
Man, it was actually not that long ago. So March of 2021 will be 2 years of actually having the product in bottles and selling it. So it was about 9 months or so, like 9 or 10 months, almost a year before that. So it's been about, I'd say about 2.5 years since I decided to make that jump. It took a long time. I launched with 6 products. I didn't just launch with one and have one available. I hit the ground running with 6 total products. So I had 3 barbecue sauces and 3 seasonings, which the OG sauce, the Southern mustard, the atomic pineapple, the carne sutra, the sweet barbecue love, and the zesty taco. And I just hit the ground running with those 6 items. So that was one of the things too, that like you'd get a box in and you're like, oh, here's the updated versions, like less salt or more pepper and all that stuff. And they all come in like at once. And then you'd have to spend all this time grilling and trying it on different things and making sure that it was going to hit that profile that I had already had, because this wasn't like it was something that I didn't have a lot of people try, have before. There was the Smoking on the Plaza, which is a IBCA sanctioned barbecue cook-off here in Lovington every year, except for this past year, but every year, like around Father's Day. And one day I decided that I was going to sell the barbecue sauce up there, and I was going to sell barbecue sandwiches. I sold 500 barbecue sandwiches in 2.5 days. And that was just pulled pork, brisket, and chicken. But that wasn't even the crazy part. The crazy part was I made 400 bottles of barbecue sauce, and I sold all of them in those, in basically 4 days. I sold some before and some after. Like, people would buy a bottle while they were there, and they'd call me next, you got any more of that? I need 5 bottles. And they didn't have labels on them. I sanitized the bottles, I heated up the sauce, and I just started filling them. And it took me a month to make this stuff, and it was gone so fast. And that was even 3 years prior to me actually going, hey, I should sell this stuff. It was just one of those pipe dream kind of things. I didn't know it was actually going to happen, and then one day I woke up and I told my wife, I said, hey, I think I'm going to bottle my barbecue sauce. And she's like, are you freaking nuts? And so yeah, her friends kind of mess with her right now. Like, well, so you must hear "I told you so" every day, right?
Yeah.
And I'm like, no way, dude. My wife supports me really good, man. My wife is great.
That's awesome.
So do you have a day job, or is this like a side thing, or is this like full time now?
Well, I do have that thing that's called a real job. I do.
Okay.
My dad and I, we have a family business. My dad, my mom, and I basically we have a family business, and we have transport trucks in the oil field. So we transport from plants to boosters and back and forth and stuff like that. We only have about 6 drivers, 6 truck drivers. About 2 years ago, we had about 20, or about 3 years ago, we had about 21. And we severely downsized whenever the oil field was slowly dropping. We just got out and we kept what we wanted. We kept a core group of guys, and they've been with us ever since. We got one guy that's been with us for like 20 years, and then we have another guy that's been with us for like 5. And yeah, we just have a couple guys that worked for us previously that are now back working with us now, that they were here with us for like 3, 4, 5 years before. Yeah. So we have our core group of guys, but yeah, I do that. And then we do general contracting, and we build steel buildings and stuff. But man, this is definitely something that's taken over like all of my time. I still work mainly from right here. With that, and my dad handles a lot of more of the day-to-day than I do. But it's just because the growth that I've been having with this has been so much that it's seriously requiring close to, if not at least 40 hours a week right now. And that's just me being like in the office. And I try to make sure that like I can spend all the time that it needs to make it grow. But I also try to make sure that this isn't going to be something that like the oil field where it's going to be 24/7 for me, where I have to concentrate on it 24/7 to 365. I want something that's going to slow it down a little bit where I can, spend the time with my family and stuff. Like, 5 o'clock, I want to go home, dude. At 5 o'clock, I'm done. Like, and there are days where, I spend about an extra hour and a half at the office, but most of the time I try to just turn it off and I come home and I do my thing, my wife and my kids, and we get going there. And, the goal is to be able to support my family, barbecue, drink beer, and get tattooed. That's severely the goal.
That's a great
goal.
I still have some real estate, man. I still have some. Not running out anytime soon, but my biggest regret with any tattoo is the fact that I'm not going to be able to start over eventually.
Yeah, there's always other parts of the body. Both my arms are filled up now, so I moved down to my calves.
That's where I'm going next, dude, is my legs. Yeah, I got some stuff on my back, but yeah, I'm going to my legs next.
Yeah, I started like as I got older, I'm like, maybe the midsection, like the back, things like that, then I'm not going to show off as much anymore. I was like, I'm going to try and put it more like on the legs. The arms are done. So I was like, all right. Got to take
man, but like when you get to be I'm one of those people my chest hair is pretty thick. So I can't exactly get a tattoo on my chest because I don't want to shave it every day.
Right.
That's awesome.
Okay. So when you started up, getting into this, I love this question. Everyone always has a back up against the wall moment. Do you remember what yours was where you're getting into it and you're just like, man, like I could quit here or I could just really keep pushing forward and just, I have to do this and chase this dream?
Yeah. To be honest, man, it was about almost a year ago exactly. I think it was like December 10th or something like that. I'm remembering the day because I was like a couple of days after I went in. So late November, like right around Thanksgiving, we lost my grandma last year, and it was kind of a rough deal. But so then I want to say it was probably only about like 3 days later, I guess it was about a week. So, it was in November. And then Lovington was doing the Local Innovators Institute. And the Local Innovators Institute, they were going to take people with the ideas of possibly being able to open a brick and mortar restaurant at some point. And they were going to allow them to use this food truck that they purchased. And you basically would only give them like 1% of your earnings as long as you turned a profit, and you'd run it for 3 weeks. and they would teach you how to order and all that stuff. And so one of the guys calls me and he's like, dude, this is your gig, man. This is what you need, man. He's like, I see your Instagram, I see your Facebook. He's like, you need to be in this. And he's like, this thing basically was almost written for you. Like, you need to do it. And I'm like, I don't know, man. And then I kind of researched and I'm like, all right, that sounds like a good deal. So, you know, I mean, it was pretty rough. Like I said, I'm like, by the time that happened, like we had just lost my grandma, and, you know, I mean, I was starting to get a little busier doing this, plus the job. And it was just, you know, the time of the year was pretty rough, man. I was getting pretty stressed out with some stuff with work and, you know, trying to learn how to juggle both.
Yeah.
And so I go into this meeting and I had about you had to talk for like 10 minutes. And then you had a full 10 minutes and you had a 10-minute Q&A from like 15 people. And so I'm going, okay, like, what do I do? So I immediately start crying. And I'm one of those people, I don't really like to sit there and brag on my accomplishments like you. Like, sometimes it gets me and you kind of get choked up and stuff. That's just how I am. And I mean, I'm more like, hey, look, guys, guess what? This is what we did, you know, and kind of have fun with it. Instead of just like, okay, look, listen, this is what I do. This is how I do it. This is what's happened. This is what, you know, the goals that I've accomplished. And it was really hard. Well, especially with just losing my grandma. So I basically cried for like 10 minutes, giving them my spiel. The second I got done, I kind of just wiped the tears. Like, it was hard for me to talk. And like, just basically like, oh God, I'm good. They're like, you okay? I'm like, yeah, I'm good. And I answered every question for 10 minutes, no questions asked. It was just a really hard time to be bragging about myself at that point. And so, long story short, like 3 days later, they call me and they're like, we're not going to accept you into this program. And I'm like, and my heart just dropped because I was like seriously about ready to pull the trigger on a food trailer and just really start hitting the road. Not just with like any competition site, but like just really hit the road here and sell my stuff. And I mean, I had the menu laid out, everything. And it was actually really hard, man. Like, it was really hard for me to stomach that. I'm like, how could you not accept me into this? I'm like, I had the menu, I had everything, you know? And I'm like, half of the people in town have already had my products in their face, you know? And I'm like, how can you not? And then they're like, we feel that it would take away from what you got going right now. And it may be more of a burden to you than what you have. I hung up the phone, talked to my wife. I was pretty upset. I'm like, it was like, dude, I just can't believe this. The next day, 15 orders on my website. The next day, 15 orders on my website. The next Christmas is coming, dude. I was slammed. I made more sales in the next 10 to 15 days than I had all the year. And ever since then, I was like, I hit January 1st and I said, this is my goal for the year. This is my sales goal for the year. Once I hit this, I know that I can do it. And I just said, I'm stupid to take my foot off the gas. So just keep the pedal to the metal and run it. Do what you're doing. And basically it's like, yeah, the product is there, but I tried to just really concentrate on selling myself and like what I stand for, you know, the beer drinking, the barbecue, the tattoos, just really sell that to the people. Like, it's not because, I mean, what percent of the people drink beer and have tattoos? You know, I mean, a lot. And I kind of looked at some of the guys that were like big competition and was like, okay, well, this guy, he, you know, like he appeals towards a more like conservative type of market, you know. I mean, it's called Meat Church, you know. I mean, they're the pinnacle right now. They're the pinnacle of the barbecue world. And I'm like, I put a target on that guy, and I'm like, that's the goal right there. That's where I'm going. I'm going to appeal to a different crowd though, and that's really where I went. And that was the turning point. And like I said, I set the goal for myself in on January 1. I hit that goal in August, and I was super pumped. And I just was like, I can't take my foot off the gas. I just can't. And since August, I've doubled it. So that's awesome. It's super crazy right now.
Yeah, that's awesome that you were able to think ahead and realize like, okay, I need to figure out a niche and then stick to it. And it needs to make sense for you, like something that you're going to be comfortable in because you know you're going to, you know, live in it nonstop. So
no,
that was awesome.
And that's just, I mean, that would, like you said, like I've never actually had that question asked to me. And it's funny because the second you mentioned it, I knew exactly what point that was. And I've never actually thought that was the turning point. But really, realistically, like a year ago, man, right now was a huge turning point. And where we had international awards on pretty much all 9 products. So even at that point, I was working on 3 new products releasing in the spring. And so I had 6 and I was working on 3 and I wasn't even a year old with this stuff yet. And that's when I was like, man, I can't take my foot off the gas.
Not only that, but you did it during a pandemic. It's like, that's just insane. Like, could you imagine if you're out in front of more people throughout the year?
Man, and you know what? And that's one thing too, that just like, it's so hard because it's like, I try to look at it as the most positive way possible. And my kids play softball. We're traveling. We're in a different town almost every other weekend, and they're playing softball. And it's like, now they didn't do that, and it sucks. You know, I mean, it sucks for me because I don't get to watch them. You know, because my oldest, she's a beast. I mean, she's just a beast. I think she's like 3rd in the state in powerlifting right now. Like she's doing pretty good, man. And like, she's really grown. She's 16 and she's really growing. And my middle one has it up here and her hand, like she can go head to hands. And it's really great to watch them. That's the part that I love the most, is actually watching them play. And man, it's like, they didn't get to do any of that. But in like, I tell myself, like, would I have had time to do what I did this year if we were still doing that? Probably not, but I wouldn't have sacrificed it. I wouldn't have sacrificed it.
Yeah, that's one of the things we talk about a lot on here. And Murray and I experience it ourselves, is how do you find a balance when because we've kind of find if you get sucked into that side hustle, that passion project, you can actually get burnt out on it, just like you might have done on a permanent job. So how have you been able to balance, the extra work with the day job and still doing family life?
Well, like I said, I mean, I made sure that I had to turn it off. I just had to turn it off. Like it's, I mean, and you get you get out what you put into stuff. And, I mean, the amount of dedication that I give the TD's Brew BBQ right now, dude, is, I mean, the only thing that I give more dedication to is my wife and my kids. And if you would have asked me 3 years ago, on my current situation, my current job, my job was almost more of a priority because I was doing it 24/7. I mean, that's the oil field. I mean, like you live in this area, that's the oil field. It doesn't sleep, man. Your phone rings at 2:00 in the morning. You're answering it, man. Because if you don't, you could possibly lose out on more than just that one, because they won't call you again. And now it's the point where we stay busy with that, and we're pretty fortunate on that to stay busy. But to have somebody like I do with my dad in my corner here, who's really pushing me at the same time and taking care of what we have to do. He comes to me and he's like, "Look, we got to do this today." I'm like, "Oh crap, man! I was going to do this, but this is the life, I mean, this is what I have to do in order to make this work."
Yeah. So another thing that I was curious about is your background back there, because I see a lot of your YouTube videos, and it looks like you got like a sweet man cave or something going on back here, because that's where you do a lot of the barbecue and stuff. Is how the setup looks awesome, and I noticed your YouTube videos are really well done. Do you have someone help you with those, or is that just something you got to put a lot of time into the editing?
Oh man, I do it all myself, man. I am my only employee, dude. The only person that I pay to do anything is Russ Black on the radio every day at 3:30. The TV's Brew BBQ Big Burning Question of the Day comes on, and I've had it for a little over a year now. I just happened to walk in there, and the Big Burning Question of the Day. If you abbreviate Big Burning Question of the Day, it is BBQ. And and that's exactly. I'm like, I have to pay for this slot, man. I have to. So you got a guy like that who just every day, and it's a live read. So he's just coming up with stuff every day, talking about it. And that's the one thing that's crazy about like down here in Southeastern Mexico is I get so many. I was even in Fort Worth for 2 weeks, And I had people come by and like, yeah, we live in Artesia. We love your stuff, man. We listen to Russ Black every day. And I'm like, that's awesome. Like, I'm like, hey, how's it going? I'm Tearl, and introduce myself because I'm in Fort Worth. I'm not in Artesia. I'm in Fort Worth, and that was pretty cool. But this is the sanctuary of satisfaction.
Yes.
That's what I call it, man. Yeah. Nothing bad happens in the sanctuary of satisfaction. This is where I come and my chi, this is everything, man. I come down here right after work. My fridge is loaded full of beer. I grab a beer. I mean, I grab a beer. I have a beer. I go inside. I do my thing. This is where I come to turn everything off and then go back into the rest of the life. I made sure that, everybody's got to have that place, man, where you can do your thing. And, on Sundays or Saturdays, when I'm watching football, I'm a huge football junkie. So I watched the Ducks, when they started up, and I'm a huge Bear fan too. So, of course, Brian Urlacher is from this area, so I have to be a huge Bear fan. I hate the Lions, hate the Packers, hate the Eagles.
How can you hate the Lions though? I mean, we're from Michigan. We're Lions fans, unfortunately.
I get no sympathy. I give them no sympathy, man. It's like hating the Browns. Like, oh, dude, the organization's for like, as a Bears fan, yeah, dude, our organization is possibly the worst organization out there. Yeah. Like, they just cannot figure it out. And it's like, it's so bad because like we can have the talent, but they just can't figure it out. And the Chiefs were like that for a long time. Yeah. The Chiefs were that organization that they had the talent, but they could not get their shit together. Oh, sorry, man. They couldn't get it together, dude. And
no rules here.
Now that's where we are on the Bears. With the Bears, like one day they're going to get their shit together, and we're going to be good. Yeah, just like the Lions, man. Just like the Lions. I hope it's soon.
We've been waiting our whole lives. I think we're going to have to wait just a little bit longer.
Right. Hey, I've only seen one, dude. I've only had one, and I was 4.
Yeah.
When that happened. I mean,
it's been a rough go.
We were there in 06. We were there in 06, but yeah, I definitely was not. It could have, in 06, it could have ended a little bit better for us. But,
yes. Well, you guys have had a rough go for sure. Murray and I, since we're actually coming up on time here pretty quickly, there's one, I guess, a tough barbecue question for you. If you watch the podcast, I like to make fun of Murray. It's all because we're best friends and I'm just messing with him. But Murray is one of those guys that doesn't eat meat. So what advice would you give to someone like Murray who likes to barbecue and grill? What kind of stuff can he do?
So like, what kind of advice can I give him?
Eat meat.
He doesn't eat meat. Yeah, basically. Like,
right.
See your
nice.
I mean, everything on my stuff is basically sex, drugs, and rock and roll, man. It's brew, barbecue. Basically, you put a comma there, you basically have a strip club, brewery, barbecue joint. It's like,
yes, yeah, for sure.
Said if you like TDs, I end my stuff like get your hands on some TDs, put my TDs in your face, and like I tell them, I'm like, if you don't like my advertising, don't buy it. Like, that's what I can do, man. I have to appeal to a certain demographic, and not just a certain demographic. The people that like, oh, that's so funny, and almost like buy it as like a novelty. Like, in Albuquerque, there's a strip club called TDs.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I've never been there before.
I actually saw it. I saw it one time. Okay.
Just driving by, see it from the freeway.
I've never been there, but I know what that is. And it's called Tea Showcase. I totally know what that is. But yeah, the only advice I can say, dude, like, I guess there's some really good recipes out there, man. And like, do you eat soy? Like, do you eat eggs?
Yeah. So I was looking at your the website. I mean, the what was it? The smoked green chili mac and cheese. That looks amazing. Then you got the potato salad with your mustard. So big mustard guy. So there's plenty of options out there. I think Erik just likes to give me a hard time, but there's so much you can do being a vegetarian. It's just like I can take just about any of the items that you sell and put it on something and still eat it.
Yeah. And as a matter of fact, like, I think even if I don't think it's on the website, but if you go to the Facebook or the Instagram page, I do have a recipe for buffalo cauliflower. If you've ever had, I mean, I know a lot of people that are meat eaters, man. And I'll tell you, dude, like, especially me, if I go somewhere and they have buffalo cauliflower, I'm ordering it. I mean, even as a side, because I love that, dude. It tastes like chicken. It is almost like just chicken nuggets with buffalo sauce. And I think it's Alamo Draft House, like a movie theater. They actually have that there as their vegan option. And I order it every time that we've gone. And it seriously, like halfway through the bowl, I'm like, oh my God, this is cauliflower. Like, I have to remind myself that it's actually cauliflower. I also do cauliflower steaks. I do cauliflower steaks.
Okay.
I'm not a broccoli guy. I hate broccoli with a passion. So don't bring your broccoli over here, dude. I don't do it. So,
okay.
but yeah, man. Dude. You don't eat fish at all either.
No, I never really cared for fish, so that one was pretty easy. Right. So, yeah, but I know Erik and his family really like fish.
Yeah.
There you go.
I eat primarily meat. I like to give Murray a hard time, but he's not like kind of like the hipster vegetarian. Like Murray is literally like Ted Nugent. Like he could go out basically and kill a deer and have it ready to go in like 5 minutes. He just kind of like gave up that lifestyle. So I respect that. But see, so he's not cool. like a hipster guy. Like Murray during the apocalypse, you want him on your side for sure.
Because he is the one that can fish hunt and that can fish hunt and cook. He just doesn't eat it. He's like, no, I'm not eating that shit.
We were camping a couple of years ago and I was fishing and I'm not very good at it. And I can see Murray sitting back there watching me and he's like, give me that. This is how you do it. And I was like, I thought you don't fish anymore.
That's great, man. Good. I got vegetarians and vegans that I think like, dude, I don't care if you are. Like, you don't have to tell me every 5 minutes. Like, just, I don't care. And I get that question a lot, man. Actually, like, people are like, well, I'm vegetarian or I'm vegan. And I'm like, well, unless you, there is a butterflake. I use like a butterflake in the carne sutra, and that's what gives it a really buttery taste in there. I'm like, well, unless you don't eat butter, then these are the only ones. I mean, all these other ones have it in there. But, so, because like, the original sauce, the mustard is the original sauce with a mustard base instead of a tomato base. So it's primarily the same sauce. And then the atomic pineapple and the cherry chipotle are the original with added ingredients. That's it. I mean, the original and the carne sutra, which is like my best-selling product, was actually an accident because it's primarily most of the seasoning I use in the barbecue sauces. Nice. So when they mix my barbecue sauces, they actually get like 50 pounds of the carne sutra, and they actually weigh it out and they use it to make the barbecue sauces.
Oh, that's awesome. I actually tried the carne sutra last night. I made some steaks because I've been tasked with making the Christmas brisket this year, and I tried new rub. So I wanted to test it on the steaks and I really liked it. So I wanted to ask you this one also. I got a father-in-law that is picky and I got to make the Christmas brisket and I'm okay. I'm not great. I always tend to dry it out. I use a Weber, I use charcoal and wood. Give me some tips. How do I not screw up the Christmas brisket for Mr. Dickey this year?
So the first thing I can say, man, you always cook to temp, not time. So if you're going to wrap your brisket, you wrap it at 165 to 175 degrees when it's internal at the basically almost at the lowest point. So if you got it, like if the flat is this big and then the point is this big, then you want to be checking the temp at the flat.
Okay.
So what you'll do, you could just kind of, that's so weird that it's this cold. There's a bug in here. But what I recommend doing, I call it the menage a trois. Like I said, everything is sex, drugs, and rock and roll, basically, man. You can actually buy the bundle on the website. It's actually called the menage a trois, which is the carne sutra, the sweet barbecue rub, and the zesty taco. So what I do is I season the brisket with the carne sutra, and then I season it with the sweet barbecue rub, and then I season it again with the zesty taco. Because it takes a lot to over season a big chunk of meat like that because you have a lot of surface area and everything that you can use. So because when you slice it, you're realistically only getting about that much, versus, this much of a piece this big. So, but yeah, that's what I say, man. And then you take it up to 203 degrees, leave it wrapped in foil until about 203 is the magic number, man, in like your big meats like that. And then wrap it in a couple towels, put it in a cooler, and let it set for about 4 hours, man. And what you're doing is think of it like as a sponge. If you take a plate and you have a sponge that's full of water and you squeeze that sponge and you pour it back on the plate, then you set that sponge back on top of there. What's the sponge going to do? It's going to soak back up all the water again. So that's basically how to think about like a brisket, man. Briskets are one of those things, everybody calls it their nemesis. So like sometimes it's pretty hard, sometimes it's pretty easy. But yeah, the brisket, it's not very hard to screw it up as long as you're cooking to time or temperature and not time. And everyone's like, oh, I need this brisket done in 12 hours. I'm like, well, I can get a brisket done in 12 hours every time. It's how long you're going to let it rest. That's the key, man. That's the key.
Yep. Well, I'm going to try. Hopefully I don't screw it up this year. We're going to do our live podcast.
Don't forget to call me, dude. I'll answer. Yeah. You wouldn't be the first, dude. I talked the guy through a bunch of steaks last night, so it's not a big deal.
Awesome.
Usually Erik's good, but then when he gets around that 8th, 9th beer, and it's just like, oh, you forget you have meat on the grill.
Yeah, it starts going downhill.
That's when you start reaching the status of pitmaster, is when you can cook a brisket for 12 hours and you can be at least 18 beers deep in that 12 hours and still be able to know what you're doing. That's how you reach the status of a pitmaster.
Well,
that's awesome.
I've reached the status of an attorney, so I just drink all the time.
Yeah, like I said, that's the goal. Drink beer, barbecue, and get tattooed, man.
Nice. Yeah. Well, I know we're kind of coming up on time here. Really quick to kind of close it out. Maybe tell everybody where they can find your stuff one more time and maybe some advice. We have a lot of people that watch our podcast that are kind of on the fence. They have this thing that they're passionate about, but they're reluctant to follow it. You haven't gone through it. What's kind of your parting advice to people that have this thing they're passionate about, but they're kind of afraid to make the jump?
Do it. That's all you say.
Yes.
Do it. I mean, it's yeah, man, if you're going to do something, you got to do it. And that's the thing, man, is that this is something that I could have possibly done 10 years ago that I didn't do. I didn't know. I didn't know I had, it was kind of one of those things that I was really humble about. Like, well, I know it's good, but how good is it? Like, my friends like it, how are they just liking it because I make it? Like, I'm not the best cook out there, man. I'm self-taught. I never had a job in a restaurant ever. I went in for an interview to be a waiter, I think at Islands, right outside of college. I'm like, man, I want to be a waiter. It's a good place to meet girls, and all of a sudden everyone's like, yeah, I mean, you have a great personality to be a waiter, man. Like, you could do it. Like, you could do it. I'm like, all right. So I tried it. And the guy basically, he's sitting across from me and he basically has a full Fu Manchu goatee, kind of like what you got. And he says, are you willing to shave off this goatee? Dude, I'm like 20 years old. Okay. So this is not as full as a lot of people at 20. And he's like, are you willing to shave that off? And I'm like, do I have to? And he's like, well, yeah, you have to shave it off if you're going to work here. And I'm like, this guy has seriously the mustache coming down. That's the rule. Unless you have the full Fu Manchu, like, coming down, you can't have any facial hair. Like, you can't just have a mustache. You can't just have the goatee. You have to have the full thing. And I'm like, this is ridiculous, man. I'm like, so I got up and I walked out. Dude, that's the closest I ever came to working in a restaurant. Like, I just started teaching myself, man. I really started cooking a lot when YouTube was starting to get popular. And if I wanted to cook something, I just kind of watched someone do it, and then I went and did it my way. That's one thing with video stuff. You don't have to do it that way. It's a guide. And I mean, the same thing, like, you could go to any type of like a small business seminar or something like that, and you can listen to somebody for 10 days straight tell you what you need to do. But that's just a guideline. You still have to do it for yourself, and you have to do it your way. And the way, if you do one thing, like if you, let's say, like you start, like I have some things where I promoted some things, like I promoted a picture without the product in it on Instagram or something like that. And I get a ton of people like coming to my page and liking my page. but then you do something where you put the products in it, and then you start to get more people towards your website, but it's not as many people, because following is free, and to get people to follow you is free, but yet to get them to actually go to the website, that's one thing you have to do. And then two, you got to get them to buy it. And so you just have to kind of figure out, like, well, that one didn't work very well. I'm not going to use something like that before, so then you find that the pictures without any food or the pictures with food are better than the ones without. You just kind of, it's like you do a trial and error. You can't be afraid to fail. And I mean, that's the one thing too, is that sometimes, like, I'll go through a rut where it's like, dang, I only had like 3 online orders this week, man. It's been 10 days and I only had 3 people order, and it's still, I mean, anybody that orders still makes me do a happy dance, basically. I mean, I don't really do a happy dance. I do an air guitar, but,
there you go.
But man, I mean, it doesn't work. It doesn't work. And that's the only thing you can do, man, is that, you gotta set yourself up to at least have something to fall back on if it doesn't work, but you can't be afraid to try something else if it doesn't work. And that's kind of the one thing, like I said, I go through phases where I only get like 3 online orders in like 10 days, but then I go through phases where you're getting like 10 to 15 every day. And it's like, it just seems like there's a spot sometimes where you're like, I can't screw up. Like, no matter what I do, it's working. And all of a sudden it stops. And then you're like, crap, then you got to do something else because it didn't work again. You're like, oh, that's why it's not working anymore. Then you got to keep changing. You got to keep adapting. But if anybody can do something when it's at the prime, when it's top, when you're at peak, I mean, if you're at peak sales and you're getting sales, like right now, you're getting sales that are more, higher total dollar sales than what you were getting before. It's like, yeah, anybody can run a business like that. It's what you do in the downtime. It's what you do when you're slow, because you have to keep going back up. And I don't care what business you're in. It is never going to be a flat thing. You just hop on that roller coaster and you ride it and you just let it go. That's the only thing you can do. But I mean, I have people that ask about like, hey man, I'm thinking about starting up a clothing line, starting to do my thing. What do you think? I'm like, dude, I don't know anything about that. I barely know anything about the barbecue thing. The only thing I know is that I'm doing it. Like, that's it, man. I mean, I don't have somebody that's been doing it for 10 years giving me advice. And I mean, do I wish I had someone doing that? Probably. I mean, at least somebody I could call and say, hey man, like, how do you do this? And the only other option I have is I call the accountant and I'm like, hey man, what do you think about this? He's like, that's a bad idea. And I'm like, okay, I'm good. Or he's like, hey, that's not a bad idea. You should try it. And then boom, it works. That's about the only thing that I can say, dude, is that you just have to do it. And I mean, you have to do it and you have to give it the time that it needs to grow.
Well, clearly what you're doing is working. What you're doing is working. Like I said, the products are really good. I love it. I'm okay at barbecue, nothing fantastic, but man, it's good stuff and it's good advice. So everybody, please go and check them out. We got a lot of folks in Michigan. They can go to the website and order stuff.
Yep.
Great.
Yeah,
so,
and I got a, let's see, what do we got? It hasn't even been 2 years yet. Like, we're only looking at like 20 months and, 16 international taste awards, including runner-up best on the planet. I mean, so it's, it's still pretty humbling when you get that. But I think this year we pulled in 13 awards this year. Nice. And this isn't me cooking. This is not me cooking. 100% not me cooking. This is 100%. I shipped the bottle to the contest, just like I would ship it to you, just like you bought it on the shelf. And they put it in a little cup and people take a bite out of it. That's it. And it's so funny, like the pineapple, that's one of the best selling sauces that I have. And everyone that tries it it's the most off the wall barbecue sauce you're ever going to find, because I poured it over a block of cream cheese and ate it with crackers yesterday on my Instagram. That was I do halftime with the Bears show of the Bears game. I do a halftime show and a quick recipe every Bears game at halftime. And it's a real quick recipe, and that's what I did yesterday. Is I took the bottle of Atomic Pineapple and I poured it right over a block of cream cheese, and I ate it with crackers. It's a great party dip, but can your barbecue sauce do that? I mean,
no.
Atomic Pineapple, but I put it in those competitions, and it bombs. Like, it gets nowhere. think there was one where it was like sixth from the last. Like it was like five in the and like 800 different barbecue sauces. And I'm like, and I asked the guy, I said, one of the guys hit me up because that's the one that the mustard got second in. And that was the first. And I asked the guy, I'm like, and dude, I launched it in March. This was first in May. So it was only like 6 weeks in, 5-6 weeks in. And I asked this guy, I sent him a message on Facebook because I knew that he was the owner of this company. And I said, dude, I'm like, what do I do? And he goes, you don't tell anybody. He goes, you got second. Yeah. And he goes, then you tell everybody. I'm like, well, what about this? Tell them, dude, you weren't in the contest. Like, dude, how hard is it? If you don't play, tell anybody that you were in it. He goes, if you win, then you tell everyone. He's like,
exactly. Well, don't worry. Nobody listens to this podcast anyway, so no one will know.
Shoot, and even like in New Mexico, all 4 barbecue sauces are top 10 in sales in barbecue sauce in New Mexico, in the United grocery stores, which is Albertsons.
Yeah, I believe it.
So they're top 10, and that's with Sweet Baby Ray's. That's with your craft. You're talking. Most retailers are at $5.99 to $6.99 a bottle, and you're going up against $1.99 a bottle.
Yeah.
And you're still top 10. And I think the original was like number 4 in the state. So it was doing pretty well, man.
Yeah.
So I'm just really anxious to see what happens.
Well, you're doing good, man. We appreciate you coming on here. It's a hell of a story, and you make a good product. And I think if you do that, you're gonna be fine. So one last time, where can people go to buy online orders? You can go to TD's Brew and Barbecue at TDSBREWANDBBQ.com. You can go to the Facebook page at TD's Brew and Barbecue, or Instagram at TD's Brew BBQ, and TikTok at TD's Brew BBQ. I had to jump into that pool. Nice. Not really too excited about it. Dude, my kids do this every day. Not that excited about TikTok, but I started it like 3 weeks ago, and I have like 125 followers or something like that. That's pretty cool. That was pretty cool. I mean, I actually just hit 10,000 followers on Instagram and Facebook alone. Like just the two combined. I never dreamed, dude, I would have never dreamed that I would have even that. And the goal really is on Instagram is to get 10,000 followers on Instagram, because that's when you get like more features. Like you get the swipe up feature and stuff like that. You really get treated a little differently as a business from Instagram. And that's what I'm trying to get there, man. And it's been a year and a half. And I think I just broke 5,000 a day. When you're selling a product, man, it's so much harder for people to follow you than it is for people to follow someone who's just taking pictures of their butt or something, Yeah, right. That's like Murray's got tons of followers. That's all he does, right? Just take pictures like the selfies of the butt. Like, look at this vegetarian ass. Yes. So we'll put a link if you're watching this on YouTube in the description. It'll all be there to connect with you. And if you're listening to the podcast, make sure you go to our Facebook page, and we'll have all the information there. So once again, man, I know you got to run. We really appreciate it. This has been a hell of a way for us to end 2020, Murray. And I'll keep you posted on the Christmas brisket. We'll see what happens. I want to see that, man. I definitely want to see it, especially if you give it the old menage a trois. I'm going to try. my best. That's the thing, man. A lot of barbecuing, man. The good part about barbecuing is that you can eat your mistakes. Oh yeah. It's getting eaten, for sure. And one thing about a brisket too, especially if the brisket ends up kind of dry, like you want to make sure you slice it and then serve it immediately. Don't slice it and let it sit for 2 hours, because then it'll kind of dry out. But that's the one thing about it. Like if you do that and it starts to get dry, if it's kind of dry, chop it up, put it in a crock pot with some water, and let it cook. Let it basically steam for a few hours, and it will you're not really getting a lot of moisture back in the meat, but it's going to be small pieces, and it's going to be real nice and moist and juicy. So you're basically do that, put a little bit of the rub in there, set, man. Nice. Oh no, well, we lost him again. We lost him again right at the end. So no, looks like he's frozen. Am I back? Am I back? Yeah, there you go. I've had more technical. Yeah, we pushed this to the technical difficulties limit tonight, so we better shut it down. Right. Awesome. But thanks for having me, guys. I appreciate it. Anytime. If you have any questions or anything, shoot me a call, man. If anybody's listening, dude, if they got a question, you can hit me up.
I'll be more than happy to answer it for you. I just won't give you the recipes. That's basically it.
Yeah, fair enough.
Yeah, this
Fair
is
enough.
fun. Appreciate it.
Yeah, man, it's not just life changing; it's also lunch changing.
I like that.
Slogan, dude.
I like that. I like it.
Yeah, that's awesome.
I'm all for a good pun, dude.
All right. Well, thank you, sir. We appreciate it. Murray, see you next time, buddy.
All right. We'll see you guys.
See you guys.